The Great Hall of Xerion Prime stretched higher than most buildings on Earth. Crystal walls caught the light from 3 suns and threw it across the chamber in dancing patterns. Ambassador Lisa Martinez walked slowly across the polished floor, her simple black suit making her look tiny next to the alien beings that filled the massive room. She had prepared for this moment for 5 years, but nothing could have made her ready for what she was about to hear. 12 different species sat in a circle around the chamber. Each group looked so different from the others that Lisa still felt surprised when they all spoke the same universal language. The Velkari looked like giant lizards covered in metal armor. Their leader, Admiral Zeftar, had scales that changed color when he was angry. The Zethkorians were tall and thin like living crystal, making soft singing sounds when they moved. The Mindari had large heads and eyes that seemed to look right through her thoughts. Lisa took her place at the small platform in the center. Above her head, a hologram showed the blue and green planet Earth spinning slowly. She had shown this image to hundreds of alien diplomats over the past months. Most of them had been polite. Some had even seemed interested. But here in the Galactic Council chamber, she could feel something different in the air. Council leader Morgathon stood up first. He was a Velkari who had led the council for over 200 years. His voice was deep and harsh when he spoke. We have reviewed the human application for membership in the Galactic Council. The humans request full voting rights and protection under council law. They also ask for trade agreements and technology sharing. Lisa nodded. That is correct. Council leader, Earth has met all the basic requirements. We have faster-than-light travel. We have peaceful contact with other species. We have shown we can work together with alien cultures. A sound like breaking glass came from the Zethkorian section. Lisa had learned this was their way of laughing. One of them spoke up. Peaceful contact, yes. But what about military strength? Every council member must be able to defend themselves and help defend others. Admiral Zeftar's scales turned a darker green. The human military is barely worth discussing. They have a few ships that can travel between stars. Their weapons are simple chemical explosives and metal projectiles. They fight wars on one planet, with ground soldiers and flying machines that need air to work. More sounds came from around the chamber. The Mindari made clicking noises with their mouths. The Velkari hissed. Even the quiet Flothan started their low humming that meant they found something amusing. Lisa kept her face calm, but inside she was recording every word they said. Human military doctrine is primitive, continued another Velkari officer. They have something they call armies that march around on foot. They use tanks, which are just metal boxes with guns. Their space navy has maybe 50 ships total. Most council members have more ships in a single patrol fleet. A Zethkorian leader stood up, her crystal body catching the light. We have studied human wars from their historical records. They fight against each other constantly. They cannot even make peace on their own world. How can they help keep peace in the galaxy? Lisa had heard all of this before in smaller meetings, but hearing it said in front of the full council, with all the contempt and dismissal in their voices, made her angry. She forced herself to stay professional. Humans have had conflicts, yes, but we have also learned from them. We have developed ways to work together and solve problems. The Mindari representative spoke without moving his lips. His voice appeared directly in everyone's minds. Your species has been in space for less than 100 years. The youngest council member has been spacefaring for over 3,000 years. You are children playing with toys compared to our military forces. Admiral Zeftar walked closer to Lisa's platform. The Velkari Empire alone has over 10,000 warships. Each one is larger and more powerful than anything humans have ever built. Our weapons can destroy entire planets. Our shields can stop anything humans might fire at us. What could your species possibly offer in terms of military support? Lisa looked around the chamber at the alien faces staring down at her. Some looked bored. Others looked amused. A few looked almost sorry for her. Humans offer determination and innovation. We may not have the biggest ships or the oldest technology, but we know how to adapt and overcome challenges. This brought more of the glass-breaking laughter from the Zethkorians. Adapt and overcome, one of them repeated. How charming. Like watching a small animal try to understand quantum physics. Council Leader Morgathan raised one clawed hand for silence. The Council recognizes human technological advancement and diplomatic efforts. However, military capability is a requirement for full membership. Perhaps humans would be better served as a protectorate under Velkari guidance. You would receive protection and trade benefits without the responsibilities of full Council membership. Lisa had expected this. Earth's government had prepared her for exactly this offer. Thank you, Council Leader, but Earth seeks full membership only. We believe we can contribute more than you currently understand. Contribute what, exactly? Asked a new voice. Lisa turned to see a Flothan delegate speaking. The Flothan looked like oversized humans covered in thick fur, but their technology was among the most advanced in the galaxy. Your entire planet's military could not defeat a single Council patrol squadron. In the recent troubles with pirates in the Outer Rim systems, human ships would be destroyed in the first few minutes of any battle. Admiral Zeftar's scales shifted to bright orange, which Lisa knew meant he was excited. Yes, the Ravager Coalition. Perfect example. These pirates have been raiding trade ships for months. 3 different Council fleets have engaged them. The pirates use hit-and-run tactics, attacking when our forces are spread thin. They have captured or destroyed over 40 Council ships. Exactly, said the Mindari representative. If experienced Council forces struggle with these raiders, what hope would humans have? Your military concepts of honor and direct confrontation would be useless against enemies who do not follow civilized rules of war. Lisa smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Council Leader, if I may address that specific issue, Earth has dealt with similar problems throughout our history. Pirates, raiders, irregular forces. We have developed certain approaches that might prove effective. The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then Council Leader Morgathan spoke. Ambassador Martinez, are you suggesting that humans could succeed where Council forces have had difficulties? I am suggesting that different problems sometimes require different solutions. Human military thinking might offer perspectives that could be valuable. The silence stretched longer this time. Finally, Admiral Zeftar spoke, and his scales had turned almost black. With respect, Ambassador, human military thinking is barely military thinking at all. It is organized violence by barely civilized primitives. The Council appreciates your optimism, but we must be realistic about capabilities. Lisa nodded slowly. I understand your position, Admiral. I hope future events will allow for a more complete evaluation of human capabilities. Council Leader Morgathan announced that the session would continue the next day. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Lisa remained standing on her platform. She activated a small device hidden in her jacket and began recording a message for Earth Command. Everything the Council had said about human military capabilities had been noted and would be transmitted home. What the Council did not know was that Admiral Jake Rodriguez and the 7th Fleet were already moving toward Council space. Earth had anticipated this response. Soon, the Galactic Council would learn exactly what human military capabilities really looked like. 3 weeks had passed since the council meeting where Ambassador Lisa Martinez had presented Earth's case for membership. The diplomatic quarters on Zarian Prime had become her temporary home, and she spent her days meeting with individual council members trying to build support for humanity's application. The work was slow and often frustrating, but Lisa knew that patience was part of diplomacy. On a quiet morning while Lisa was reviewing trade proposals, alarms began sounding throughout the council complex. The low, urgent tones meant only one thing: emergency session required immediately. Lisa grabbed her diplomatic case and hurried toward the Great Hall, joining streams of alien representatives all moving in the same direction. The Great Hall buzzed with nervous energy when Lisa arrived. The usual formal seating had been abandoned, and delegates clustered in small groups, speaking in urgent whispers. The large display screens that normally showed peaceful trade route maps now showed something very different. Red warning markers blinked across a star chart of the Outer Rim territories. Council Leader Morgathan's voice boomed across the chamber. "Order, please. We have received distress signals from Kepler Station. All communication was lost approximately 2 hours ago. Long-range sensors show massive energy signatures consistent with a large-scale military engagement." Lisa found an empty seat and activated her personal translator to make sure she caught every detail. Kepler Station was one of the most important trade hubs in Council space, positioned at the intersection of 3 major shipping lanes. Over 10,000 beings lived and worked there, representing dozens of different species. Admiral Zeftar stood up, his scales already shifting toward the dark colors that meant serious trouble. Preliminary reports indicate the Ravager Coalition has launched their largest attack yet. Intelligence suggests they assembled a fleet of over 300 ships for this assault. A Zethkorian delegate made the sharp whistling sound that indicated shock. 300 ships? Our intelligence estimated their total strength at maybe 100 vessels. Clearly, our intelligence was wrong, Admiral Zeftar replied grimly. The defense force at Kepler Station consisted of 42 ships from the Velkari Third Fleet and 18 Zethkorian patrol cruisers. They were considered more than adequate to protect the station. The main display screen flickered and then showed footage that made Lisa's stomach turn. The images came from automated monitoring satellites around Kepler Station. Massive explosions lit up the darkness of space as ships fired on each other with weapons that turned metal into vapor and energy into destruction. The Council vessels fought bravely, but they were clearly outnumbered and overwhelmed. Lisa watched as one of the large Velkari battleships tried to position itself between the attackers and the station. Enemy fire concentrated on the battleship from multiple directions. The ship's shields flared and then failed, and secondary explosions began tearing through its hull. Within minutes, the proud warship was nothing but scattered debris. The station itself held out for approximately 4 hours, Admiral Zeftar continued. The final transmission came from Station Commander Velthos. He reported that all defensive systems had failed, and that Ravager forces were boarding the station. The display screen went dark for a moment, then showed new footage. This time, the images came from inside Kepler Station. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow, as figures in battle armor moved through corridors. The armor looked like it had been welded together from scraps of different ships, and the beings inside moved with the confidence of veterans who had done this many times before. "Complete loss," announced a Mindari representative, his mental voice reaching everyone in the chamber. "No survivors detected. The Ravagers did not take prisoners or leave anyone alive to send messages." Lisa felt cold, despite the warm air in the chamber. She had visited Kepler Station twice during her diplomatic mission. The beings there had been friendly and helpful, excited to meet someone from the newest species applying for council membership. Now they were all dead. Council leader Morgathan called for reports from military commanders. The news got worse with each update. The Ravager fleet had not remained at Kepler Station to hold territory. Instead, they had scattered into smaller groups and disappeared into the asteroid fields and nebulae that made tracking difficult. Intelligence officers estimated that the enemy had captured or destroyed over 60 council ships during the battle, while losing less than 20 of their own. "This changes everything," said a Flothan admiral whose fur had turned white with stress. "The Ravager coalition is no longer a minor piracy problem. They have become a major military threat." Admiral Zeftar's scales were now completely black. "Our standard patrol tactics are not effective against this enemy. They do not fight honorable engagements ship to ship. They mass their forces for surprise attacks, then disperse before we can respond effectively." A Zethkorian military advisor stood up, her crystal body reflecting the red emergency lighting. "We need to coordinate a major response. All council. Fleets should be mobilized to hunt down these raiders before they can strike again." "Coordinate how?" asked another voice. "The Velkari prefer direct assault tactics. The Zethkorians favor long-range bombardment. The Mindari rely on telepathic coordination that other species cannot use. The Flothan use swarm tactics with small ships. How do we make all of these different approaches work together?" Lisa listened to the debate that followed. Each species had developed their military traditions over thousands of years. Each approach had strengths and weaknesses, but combining them effectively seemed almost impossible. The Velkari talked about honor and direct confrontation. The Zethkorians discussed precise targeting and minimal collateral damage. The Mindari wanted to use their mental abilities to confuse enemies. The Flothan proposed overwhelming numerical superiority. Hours passed as the council argued about tactics and strategies. Lisa noticed that the discussion kept coming back to the same problems. The council forces were spread across dozens of star systems. Communication between different species' fleets was slow and often misunderstood. Most importantly, none of the council military traditions seemed designed to fight against an enemy that refused to follow the accepted rules of civilized warfare. As the debate continued, Lisa made her decision. She activated her communication device and sent a coded message to Earth. The message was simple. Request immediate military consultation. Council faces major threat they cannot handle with current capabilities. Recommend 7th Fleet deployment for demonstration purposes. When there was finally a pause in the argument, Lisa stood up. "Council Leader Morgathan, if I may address the chamber." The chamber fell quiet. Admiral Zeftar's scales shifted to orange, which Lisa now knew meant he was annoyed. "Ambassador Martinez, this is a military discussion between council members. Humans are not yet qualified to participate in such matters." Lisa kept her voice calm and professional. "I understand, Admiral. However, Earth would like to offer assistance with this crisis." The silence that followed was broken by what Lisa had learned was Flothan laughter, a low rumbling sound. "Ambassador," said the Flothan admiral, "with all respect, human forces would be destroyed within minutes of encountering the Ravager coalition. This is not a situation where good intentions can replace military capability." "What exactly are you proposing?" asked Council Leader Morgathan. Lisa took a deep breath. "Earth requests permission to deploy a task force to deal with the Ravager coalition threat. In exchange, we ask that the Council reconsider our application for full membership based on the results of this operation." The chamber erupted in sounds that Lisa's translator couldn't even begin to interpret. Admiral Zephytar's scales cycled, through colors so fast they looked like a strobe light. The Zethkorians were making sounds like musical instruments being smashed. Even the normally calm Mindari were projecting emotions of disbelief so strong that Lisa could feel them without being telepathic. "Ambassador Martinez," said Council Leader Morgathan when order was finally restored. "The Ravager Coalition just destroyed one of our strongest defensive positions and eliminated over 60 Council warships. Are you seriously suggesting that human forces could succeed where our combined fleets have failed?" Lisa nodded. "Yes, Council Leader, I am." Admiral Zephytar stood up so quickly that his chair fell backward. "This is absurd. Human military capability is barely sufficient to defend their own planet. The idea that they could face the Ravager Coalition is not just optimistic, it is delusional." "Nevertheless," Lisa replied, "Earth makes this offer in good faith. We believe we can resolve this crisis." Council Leader Morgathan looked around the chamber at the other delegates. "This is highly irregular. However, given the severity of the current situation, the Council will consider any reasonable assistance." "There is nothing reasonable about this," Admiral Zephytar protested. "We would be sending human forces to their deaths, and the Ravager Coalition would capture their ships and technology." Lisa smiled slightly. "Admiral, I appreciate your concern for human lives. However, Earth Command is confident in this mission." The debate that followed lasted another hour, but Lisa could tell that desperation was winning over skepticism. The Council needed help. The edge of Council space looked empty to most observers, just another region where stars scattered their light across the darkness. But Admiral Jake Rodriguez knew better than to trust appearances. His flagship, the UES Yorktown, led a formation of 37 human vessels that had been moving toward this position for the past 2 weeks. Unlike the elegant curves and decorative elements of Council ships, human vessels looked like what they were, tools designed for war. Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Yorktown, watching as his communications officer established contact with the Council observation team that had been waiting for them. The team consisted of military advisors from each major Council species, sent to provide guidance and coordination for the human forces. Rodriguez suspected they were really there to watch humans fail spectacularly. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Council observation ship," reported Lieutenant Kate Phillips from the communications station. "They're requesting permission to come aboard for a tactical briefing." Rodriguez nodded. "Grant permission. Have them dock in Bay 3. I'll meet them in the main briefing room." 30 minutes later, Rodriguez found himself facing a group of aliens who looked like they expected to be dealing with enthusiastic but clueless children. Admiral Zephytar led the group, his scales a neutral green that Rodriguez had learned meant careful politeness. Beside him stood a tall Zethkorian, whose crystal body reflected the harsh lighting of the human ship, and a Mindari whose large eyes seemed to be studying everything at once. "Admiral Rodriguez," Admiral Zephytar began, "the Council appreciates Earth's willingness to assist with this crisis. We have prepared detailed tactical assessments and coordination protocols to help integrate human forces with standard Council military doctrine." Rodriguez gestured toward the large display screen that dominated one wall of the briefing room. "Thank you, Admiral Zephytar. Before we begin, I'd like to show you our current intelligence picture." The screen came alive with a 3-dimensional map of the local star systems. Red markers indicated known Ravager positions, while blue markers showed Council fleet deployments. Yellow markers, which outnumbered both red and blue, showed human reconnaissance assets that had been gathering information for the past week. The Zethkorian advisor made a sharp whistling sound. "Admiral Rodriguez, our sensors show no human ships in these positions. How did you gather this intelligence?" "Stealth. Reconnaissance drones," Rodriguez replied. "Each one is about the size of your thumb and nearly undetectable. We've been mapping Ravager positions, supply lines, and communication patterns since we arrived in this region." The Mindari advisor leaned forward, his mental voice reaching everyone in the room. This level of intelligence gathering was accomplished. In 1 week, our combined council efforts have been unable to track Ravager movements effectively for months. Rodriguez touched a control, and the display changed to show detailed information about 17 different Ravager installations. We've identified their main base of operations, 3 major shipyards, 6 supply depots, 4 communication relay stations, and 3 emergency rallying points. We also have current strength estimates for their mobile fleets. Admiral Zeftar's scales shifted toward orange. "Admiral Rodriguez, standard military protocol requires formal challenges and declared intentions before engaging enemy forces. The Council operates under established rules of civilized warfare." "With respect, Admiral," Rodriguez replied, "the Ravager Coalition demonstrated at Kepler Station that they don't follow civilized rules of warfare. We intend to respond appropriately." The Zethkorian advisor's crystal body rang like a bell as she shifted her weight. "What exactly does that mean, Admiral Rodriguez?" Rodriguez touched another control, and the display showed the human battle plan. The alien advisors studied it in growing silence. Unlike Council military traditions that focused on single large engagements, the human plan called for simultaneous attacks on all 17 Ravager positions. Different human task forces would hit different targets at exactly the same time, preventing the enemy from concentrating their forces or calling for reinforcements. "This is not possible," Admiral Zeftar said finally. "Coordinating attacks across 4-star systems simultaneously requires communication and timing precision that no military force can achieve." "We've done it before," Rodriguez replied simply. "Many times." The Mindari advisor projected confusion so strongly that even the non-telepathic humans in the room could sense it. "Admiral Rodriguez, our military traditions emphasize honor, precision, and minimal casualties. Your plan appears to prioritize overwhelming force and rapid conclusion of hostilities." Rodriguez nodded. "That's correct. Human military doctrine focuses on ending conflicts as quickly and decisively as possible. The longer a war continues, the more people die on both sides." Commander Steve Parker, Rodriguez's tactical officer, stepped forward. "If I may, Admiral, the Council advisors should understand our approach to acceptable losses." The aliens turned, their attention to Parker, who activated a smaller display screen. "Council forces at Kepler Station fought bravely but defensively. They tried to minimize their own casualties while protecting the station. We understand and respect that approach. However," Parker continued, "human doctrine accepts that some of our people will die in order to save more lives overall. We're willing to take calculated risks that Council forces might consider unacceptable." Admiral Zeftar's scales turned a darker green. "Commander Parker, are you saying that humans consider their own soldiers expendable?" "Not expendable," Rodriguez interjected. "But we understand that sometimes people have to die to prevent greater tragedies. Every human in this fleet volunteered knowing the risks." The briefing continued for another hour as Rodriguez explained human tactical concepts that the Council advisors had never encountered. Electronic warfare systems that could blind enemy sensors and communications. Psychological operations designed to demoralize and confuse opponents. Combined arms tactics that integrated different types of weapons and vehicles into coordinated attacks. Your approach seems very aggressive, the Zethkorian advisor observed. Council military philosophy emphasizes measured responses and proportional force. Captain Nina Brooks, who commanded the human marine forces, spoke up. Ma'am, with respect, the Ravagers massacred 10,000 innocent beings at Kepler Station. They didn't show any restraint or mercy. We don't believe measured responses are appropriate against enemies who target civilians. The Mindari advisor projected what felt like concern. Captain Brooks, how do you prevent your aggressive tactics from causing excessive collateral damage? Brooks activated another display that showed detailed plans for assault operations. We use precision weapons and carefully planned insertion routes. Our goal is to neutralize military targets while protecting non-combatants. But if we have to choose between mission success and avoiding all civilian casualties, mission success comes first. Admiral Zeftar stood up abruptly. Admiral Rodriguez, I must protest these tactics. The Council cannot endorse military operations that deliberately risk civilian lives. Rodriguez remained seated, his voice calm. Admiral Zeftar, human forces will conduct this operation according to human military doctrine. The Council gave us permission to deal with the Ravager Coalition. We intend to do exactly that. But the methods you describe violate every principle of civilized warfare, the Zethkorian advisor protested. The Ravager Coalition violated those principles when they murdered everyone at Kepler Station, Rodriguez replied. We're going to make sure they can't do it again. The alien advisors exchanged glances that needed no translation. They were beginning to understand that human military thinking operated on fundamentally different principles than anything they had encountered before. When do you plan to begin operations? The Mindari advisor asked. Rodriguez checked his watch. The first attacks begin in 6 hours. All 17 targets will be hit simultaneously. We estimate complete neutralization of Ravager military capability within 48 hours. 6 hours? Admiral Zeftar's scales flashed through several colors rapidly. Admiral Rodriguez, Council forces require weeks of preparation for major operations. How can you possibly coordinate such a complex attack with so little notice? Because we've been preparing for 2 weeks while gathering intelligence, Rodriguez replied. Every ship captain knows their target and their role. Every Marine unit has rehearsed their assault plans. Every pilot has studied their mission parameters. We don't waste time with additional meetings and discussions. Commander Parker activated the main display again, showing the positions of all human forces throughout the region. Admiral Zeftar, our ships are already in position around their targets. Our Marines are suited up and ready for deployment. Our fighter squadrons are armed and fueled. We're not preparing for the attack, we're executing it. The Council advisors stared at the display in growing amazement. What they had assumed was a preliminary briefing was actually a final status report before combat operations began. Human forces had moved into attack positions without fanfare or announcement, coordinating their movements across multiple star systems with a precision that Council military leaders had never imagined possible. Admiral Rodriguez, the Mindari advisor said quietly. At exactly 1400 hours ship time, human forces struck 17 targets across 4 star systems simultaneously. The council observers aboard their monitoring vessel watched in stunned silence as coordinated attacks began with mathematical precision that defied everything they understood about military operations. The first target was a Ravager supply depot built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Captain Nina Brooks led the assault with 2 companies of human Marines while Commander Steve Parker provided orbital fire support. The Ravagers had chosen the location because its rocky exterior made it nearly invisible to most sensors, and its interior tunnels would make any assault costly and time-consuming. Brooks had studied the intelligence reports and decided on a different approach. Instead of fighting through the tunnels, her Marines used shaped charges to blast new entrances directly into the storage areas. The assault took 12 minutes from first contact to complete neutralization. The Ravagers inside never had time to organize a defense or call for help. Meanwhile, 3 star systems away, Captain Dan Foster was leading a squadron of human destroyers against a Ravager communication relay station. The station was protected by automated defense platforms that Council forces had found impossible to approach without massive casualties. Foster's ships used electronic warfare systems to blind the platform's targeting sensors, then destroyed them with precision missile strikes before the defenders could adapt. Admiral Jake Rodriguez watched the reports coming in from all 17 simultaneous attacks. Each human task force was executing their mission with clockwork efficiency, using tactics that the Ravager coalition had never encountered before. The enemy had built their entire strategy around fighting Council forces that announced their intentions and followed predictable patterns. Against human forces that struck without warning and adapted constantly to changing situations, the Ravagers found themselves helpless. The Council observers were struggling to understand what they were seeing. Admiral Zeftar's scales had gone through so many color changes that they were starting to look tie-dyed. Admiral Rodriguez, how are your forces maintaining such precise coordination across multiple star systems? Our communications would require hours to coordinate attacks of this complexity. We use quantum entanglement communicators for instant communication, Rodriguez replied. Every ship captain can talk to every other ship captain instantaneously, regardless of distance. We also train extensively in independent operations, so each unit can adapt to local conditions without waiting for new orders. The Zeth Corian advisor was studying the tactical displays with growing amazement. Admiral Rodriguez, your forces are achieving objectives that our military theorists claimed were impossible. How do you coordinate infantry, naval, and aerospace assets so effectively? Lieutenant Kate Phillips looked up from her communication station. Ma'am, human military doctrine is based on combined arms integration. We train all our forces to work together from the beginning. Our Marine units include naval fire support specialists. Our ship crews include ground assault coordinators. Everyone knows how to work with everyone else. On the main display, the attack on the largest Ravager shipyard was reaching its climax. Major Amy Thompson had led a battalion of Marines in a direct assault on the facility's command center while human ships destroyed the orbital defense platforms. The Ravagers had tried to use captured civilian workers as human shields, but Thompson's forces used non-lethal gas weapons to incapacitate everyone in the command center, then sorted out civilians from enemy combatants afterward. Your Marines are willing to risk their own lives to protect enemy civilians? The Mindari advisor asked, his mental voice carrying overtones of surprise. Major Thompson's voice came through the communication system from the captured shipyard. Sir, human military doctrine requires protection of non-combatants even during offensive operations. We accept higher risk to our own people rather than harm innocents. Admiral Zeftar was studying a detailed report from one of the other battle. Sights. Admiral Rodriguez, this tactical summary indicates that your forces captured a Ravager command post by using psychological warfare tactics. What exactly does that mean? Rodriguez pulled up a video feed from the operation. We broadcast recordings of our attacks on other Ravager positions directly into their communication system. The defenders could see that their allies were being defeated systematically across multiple star systems. When we offered them the chance to surrender, most of them decided to give up rather than die for a lost cause. You convinced them to surrender without fighting? The Zethkorian advisor asked. Sometimes the best victory is the one where nobody has to die, Rodriguez replied. Human military philosophy includes the idea that defeating an enemy's will to fight is often more effective than destroying their ability to fight. The operation continued for another 6 hours as human forces systematically dismantled the Ravager. Coalition's infrastructure, supply depots were captured or destroyed, communication networks were taken offline, shipyards were seized intact, along with dozens of ships in various stages of construction. Emergency rallying points were identified and neutralized before enemy forces could regroup there. But the most impressive demonstration came during the assault on the Ravager Coalition's main base. The facility was built inside a massive space station that had been constructed over several years by welding together captured ships and salvaged materials. It should have been nearly impossible to attack successfully, with thousands of defenders and enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Colonel Pete Williams approached the problem like a human engineer rather than a traditional military commander. Instead of trying to fight through the station's defenses, his forces used mining charges to destabilize the structural supports that held the entire facility together. Within 30 minutes, the Ravager base was shaking itself apart, and the defenders were forced to evacuate or be crushed by collapsing sections. You destroyed their main base by making it destroy itself? Admiral Zeftar asked, his scales now a color that the translation system couldn't identify. We studied the construction blueprints that our intelligence teams had gathered, Williams explained over the communication link. The Ravagers had built their base by welding together hundreds of different ship hulls. Each hull had different structural tolerances and stress points. We just had to apply pressure in the right places to make the whole thing come apart. The Mindari advisor was projecting emotions so complex that even other Mindari would have had trouble interpreting them. Colonel Williams, your approach required detailed understanding of engineering principles, structural analysis, and materials science. Are all human military officers trained in these subjects? Sir, human military training includes education in any field that might be useful during combat operations. We study engineering, psychology, medicine, communications, logistics, and dozens of other subjects. Wars are won by soldiers who can think as well as fight. As the reports continued to come in, the Council observers began to understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic military history. In less than 12 hours, human forces had completely destroyed an enemy organization that had been growing stronger for over 2 years. The Ravager Coalition no longer existed as a coherent military force. But the final demonstration of human military capability came when the scattered remnants of the Ravager fleet attempted to make one last stand. Warlord Kex Thul, the coalition's leader, had managed to gather nearly 200 ships in the Kepler system where the crisis had begun. He intended to make the humans pay dearly for their victory. Admiral Rodriguez deployed the 7th Fleet's main battle group to meet this final threat. 90 human ships faced off against 200 Ravager vessels in the same space where Council forces had been overwhelmed 3 weeks earlier. The odds looked impossible. But the Council observers were beginning to understand that impossible was a concept that humans didn't accept. The battle that followed redefined everything the galaxy thought it knew about space combat. Human ships fought in coordinated formations that constantly shifted and adapted to enemy movements. They used electronic warfare to blind Ravager sensors, then struck with concentrated firepower that destroyed multiple targets simultaneously. Human fighter squadrons swarmed through the enemy fleet like angry insects, targeting critical systems and command centers. But most importantly, human forces fought with a level of coordination and tactical flexibility that made them seem like a single organism with multiple parts. When Ravager ships tried to break away from the main battle, human pursuit squadrons were already in position to intercept them. When enemy forces attempted to concentrate their firepower, human ships had already moved to positions where they could attack from unexpected angles. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Ravager coalition as a military force. Warlord Kex Thul himself was captured alive when human Marines boarded his flagship and fought their way to the bridge. Over 150 Ravager ships were destroyed or captured, while human losses totaled 3. Ships damaged and 1 destroyer lost with all hands. As the last enemy ships surrendered or fled into deep space, the Great Hall of Zerion Prime had never been as quiet as it was when the Galactic Council reconvened to discuss the aftermath of the Ravager Coalition's destruction. Ambassador Lisa Martinez walked across the polished floor toward her platform. But this time, the alien beings watching her were not looking at a representative of a primitive species seeking membership. They were looking at someone whose people had just redefined what military power meant in the galaxy. Council leader Morgathan stood at his usual position, but his posture was different now. The casual confidence that had marked his previous interactions with humans was gone, replaced by something that looked very much like careful respect. Ambassador Martinez, the Council has reviewed the reports from our military observers who witnessed the human operation against the Ravager coalition. The results were quite remarkable. Admiral Zeftar rose from his seat, his scales a neutral gray that Lisa had learned indicated serious thought. Ambassador Martinez, I must begin by apologizing for my previous comments about human military capabilities. It is clear that the Council's understanding of your species' abilities was incomplete. Lisa nodded graciously. Thank you, Admiral Zeftar. I believe this experience has been educational for all of us. The Zethkorian military advisor who had observed the operation stood up, her crystal body reflecting the chamber's lighting in sharp patterns. Ambassador Martinez, our military analysts have spent the past week studying the tactical recordings from the human operation. We would like to request detailed briefings on several aspects of human military doctrine. Of course, Lisa replied. Earth Command has authorized me to share information about our military organization and training methods. Dr. Alan Carter, Earth's military historian, entered the chamber carrying a portable display unit. Lisa had requested his presence specifically for this session, knowing that the Council would have questions that required detailed explanations. Carter activated his display and began showing information that made the alien delegates lean forward. In their seats. Honored Council members, Carter began. Human military development has been shaped by several factors that may be unique among galactic civilizations. First, humans evolved as persistence hunters who succeeded by outlasting rather than overpowering their prey. This gave us patience and determination that carries over into military operations. The display showed images from Earth's history, Ancient armies marching across continents, naval battles fought across vast oceans, air forces engaging in three-dimensional combat above cities and forests. Second, humans developed on a planet with diverse environments and climates. We learned to fight in jungles, deserts, mountains, oceans, frozen wastelands, and urban areas. This environmental diversity forced us to develop adaptive tactics. Admiral Zeftar's scales shifted to orange, indicating intense interest. Dr. Carter, are you saying that humans developed multiple military traditions simultaneously? More than that, Admiral, Carter replied. We developed military traditions that were designed to work against other humans who were equally intelligent and equally motivated. Human warfare has always been an arms race between opponents who understood each other's psychology and capabilities. The Mindari advisor projected a question that reached everyone in the chamber. Dr. Carter, how did this constant warfare affect human military development? Carter activated another section of his display, showing technological progression over time. Every time one side developed a new weapon or tactic, the other side had to develop countermeasures or lose. This created rapid innovation cycles that accelerated human military technology and doctrine. We call it adaptive evolution under pressure. A Flothan delegate spoke up, his fur rippling with what Lisa recognized as nervous energy. Dr. Carter, does this mean that human military doctrine is specifically designed to fight against intelligent, adaptable opponents? Exactly, Carter confirmed. Human military theory assumes that our enemies will be smart, well-equipped, and highly motivated. We plan for opponents who will learn from their mistakes and adapt their tactics during combat. This is why human forces seemed so effective against the Ravager coalition. Council Leader Morgathan leaned forward in his seat. Dr. Carter, please explain what you mean by that. Carter touched a control and the display showed tactical analyses from the recent operation. The Ravager coalition had developed tactics that were effective against Council forces because Council military traditions are based on different principles. Council forces fight honorably, announce their intentions, and follow established protocols. The Ravagers learn to exploit these patterns. But human military doctrine assumes that enemies will try to exploit our weaknesses, Carter continued. We train for opponents who will use surprise attacks, psychological warfare, and any available advantage. When human forces encountered Ravager tactics, we recognized them as variations of strategies we had already studied and prepared for. Admiral Zeftar stood up, his scales now showing the deep green that indicated serious concern. Dr. Carter, are you telling us that humans have been preparing for thousands of years to fight wars against opponents like ourselves? The chamber fell silent as the implications of that question sank in. Carter looked around at the alien faces, staring at him, understanding that his next words would determine how the galaxy viewed humanity for generations to come. Admiral Zeftar, human military doctrine is prepared to fight against any opponent, including ourselves, Carter said carefully. But military capability and military intention are completely different things. Humans developed effective military forces because we needed them to survive. How we choose to use those forces depends on our values and our goals. Lisa stepped forward, sensing that this was the critical moment of the entire council session. Council Leader Morgathan, Dr. Carter's presentation demonstrates that humans have significant military capabilities, but I want to be very clear about how Earth intends to use those capabilities. She activated her own display, showing images from Earth's recent history. Humans have fought many wars, but we have also learned the value of peace. Our most advanced societies have developed beyond the need for constant conflict. We use our military strength to protect ourselves and our allies, not to conquer or dominate others. The Mindari advisor projected what felt like cautious optimism. Ambassador Martinez, how can the Council be certain that human military power will not be used aggressively against Council members? Lisa had expected this question and had prepared her answer carefully. The same human values that drive us to protect innocent civilians also prevent us from attacking peaceful neighbors. Human military doctrine includes strong ethical components about when and how force should be used. Dr. Carter activated another display showing human peacekeeping operations and humanitarian missions. Throughout our history, humans have used military forces to protect civilians, deliver aid to disaster areas, and maintain peace between conflicting groups. Military power without moral purpose is just organized destruction. Council leader Morgathan was quiet for several minutes, considering what he had heard. Finally, he spoke. Ambassador Martinez, the Council must address a fundamental question. Your people possess military capabilities that exceed those of any current Council member. What assurance can you give us that humans will use this power responsibly? Lisa looked around the chamber at the representatives of 12 different civilizations, understanding that her answer would shape humanity's relationship with the galaxy. Council Leader Morgathan, I can give you the same assurance that any peaceful species can give to its neighbors. Our actions will speak louder than our words. However, she continued, I will say this. Humans did not develop powerful military forces because we enjoy fighting. We developed them because we learned that peaceful people must be prepared to defend themselves against those who are not peaceful. The Ravager Coalition demonstrated why military capability remains necessary even in an advanced galactic civilization. Admiral Zeftar's scales shifted to a color that Lisa's translator identified as respectful agreement. Ambassador Martinez, the recent operation certainly demonstrated the value of effective military forces. The Council owes humanity a debt of gratitude for resolving a crisis that our own forces could not handle. The Zethkorian advisor stood up, her crystal form reflecting the chamber's lights in complex patterns. Ambassador Martinez, speaking for the Zethkorian Assembly, we would like to formally request military cooperation agreements with Earth. We have much to learn from human tactical doctrine. Similar requests came from other council members. The Flothan wanted to study human coordination techniques. The Mindari were interested in human psychological warfare methods. Even the proud Velkari requested information about human training programs. Lisa listened to each request, understanding that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. Earth will be happy to share appropriate information and coordinate joint training exercises with Council members. We believe that stronger defenses for all peaceful species serve everyone's interests. Council Leader Morgathan called for the formal vote on human membership. This time, there was no debate about human qualifications or capabilities.